Hello, everybody. Welcome to Beyond BMR. I am your host, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. Joining me in Studio B, my great brother from the South. You know him as Tex. Beyond BMR goes beyond the mysteries of the world. We take you on a deep dive into all the rabbit holes, from Bigfoot to Dogman, UFO and aliens, time travel, and the paranormal. How do they all come full circle? Tonight, from Donny Cho Says Stuff. We got Donny Cho. We're going to get a little paranormal with Donny. If this is your first time here, please subscribe to Texas Front Porch. You can find him on YouTube. Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. You can find me on YouTube as well. You can also find us on Texas Front Porch on Facebook. You got Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob on Facebook. You can also find us on Odyssey Radio, iHeartRadio, wherever podcasts are found, including KPNL Radio. Thank you to the lovely Selene out in Oregon for that. If you like our content and like what we provide, the super chat is open. Yes, the super chat is open. Thank you so much for that. And long after the show ends, so is the super thanks. You can check out our about pages on Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, and Texas Front Porch, because they'll give you a schedule of conferences, videos, and other things that we do have going on for you, our lovely audience. Mondays is Texas Front Porch. You can find Texas Front Porch 9 o'clock in the East. Tuesday, Van Buren Variety. You can find Bobby at 8 in the East. Right back here on Tuesdays, of course, at 9 in the East is Beyond BMR. Jason McLean does something on Mysterious Library on Untold Radio AM at 10 in the East. You have to look that one up. But don't forget, Jason McLean Questions Everything hasn't gone anywhere. That's his channel. Please subscribe. He drops videos twice a week. Occasionally they're live. He's got it set up where it's a little different than the live show. He works along with Donny Cho. Fantastic show. Please subscribe to Jason McLean. Wednesdays, I skip. Wednesdays is Texas Front Porch, the Diva Dimension, currently airing at 12 o'clock in the East. That's midnight for all you folks out there on the East Coast. Thursdays is Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob at 1 o'clock in the East, me and Krista. Later on Thursday night, it's 9 in the East. It's the Blondes, the Booze, the Paranormal Podcast. Check them out. If you need more woo with the Booze, they are once again back on Friday with the Blondes, the Booze, and the Woo at 9 in the East. And don't forget, if you're a fan of true crime, Tex, Infamous Minds himself, Daniel Diva, 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Again, if you are a true crime buff, subscribe to Texas Front Porch, but go over and check them out. They could use your support over there. Just a fantastic show. And of course, that is Saturdays. And I got to mention my lovely friend Jessica Jones, Space Out Radio, Saturday and Sunday, 10 in the East, over there with Dave Scott. Thank you so much for that. Thanks for everybody for coming in. I'm going to bring up my brother from Texas, Mr. Tex.
Hey.
Hey, Tex.
How are you doing, man?
You know, we're doing great. Thank you, Scott, right off the bat with a cool super chat. Thank you, brother. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. You know, okay. Again, I always talk about something crazy going on at my house, and this time it's not the weather. You know, I killed, before this show, about 17 flies. Yeah. And I don't know if you can hear me because I see my internet thing going on. So am I coming loud and clear? Am I looking good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that was kind of weird. I mean, I don't know. It's been such a weird summer, Tex. Again, it's probably the same for you in Texas. Is it any different, the weather down there? Because I know it's 108. I looked it up because I do track you over there, your weather. And, but yeah, unusual weather for me. What about yourself, my man?
You know what? It's not that unusual. It's just, I mean, we've had hot summers before,
Mhm.
and it's just, I don't like it anymore.
You know, well,
I'm done. I'm done with it.
well, let me ask you this: when you continue working your real job, your regular job, I should say, are you looking to retire somewhere cooler, or you got something planned when you and the little missus want to pack it up?
You know, we've talked about retiring up in the mountains up in Rio Dosa because we love it so much, in Mexico.
Hmm.
Um, and now we're talking about just getting us an RV and just being that couple that just travels all over the place.
Okay.
Um, and pretty much going to if I could bounce around from conference to conference to conference speaking, that's what we would do. We would travel all over the country and just go to different conferences in
I
my
think that'd be,
retirement.
I think that'd be fun. Pack up in the RV, go to conferences, see the world, or the United States, I guess. I tell you what, I have an aunt and uncle that did that. They were both teachers, and they bought a nice, expensive RV, but they met when they were 30 years old, got married, they retired, I think, in their 60s. But every week they put away because RVs, and they got a good one. We're talking six figures,
Oh
but
yeah.
they were adamant about putting away the money. And all they do is they live in Michigan, obviously, but all they do now today is send me pictures from the West, Arizona, New Mexico, Montana, California, Utah, Idaho. And they're having a time of their life. And it's like, man, that wouldn't be a bad thing to do. I don't know what it costs in gas, but I think it'd be a hell of a thing. Hell of a
Well,
thing to do.
we're not looking at getting one of them big rigs or nothing like that. It would be a pull behind camper. You
Right?
know, probably about 27 feet, something like that,
Which
where
is
you
plenty of
ain't,
size. Plenty of
where,
size.
where you ain't got to you know mortgage your house to pay for it. But it's yeah, that's one plan we got, and the other one is just buying us a place up in the mountain. Just go for the summer and spend the winters down here if we want to. And so we don't know yet, but I'm about 10 years out from.
Yeah, it's a little early, but I do. I don't envy anybody. I give people their credit because they earned it, and that's something that it's a. I think it'd be fantastic, and I hope that you can do that. And you can always pick me up in Michigan, and you can
Yep.
I can put gas in the vehicle. I can do the dishes. As long as you don't
There
charge
you
me
go. There you
fee.
go.
And I think that'd be fantastic. I have yet to meet the wife. Hopefully soon, and hopefully she likes me because that's a big part of everything.
I'm not too sure she likes me, so it's,
Oh, I fit right in. Then I did meet your daughter in Texas, one of them,
yeah, yeah,
and she was fantastic, enjoyable young lady. We threw down at the Mexican restaurant, so that was a lot of fun.
yeah. She had fun. She liked Joe.
Oh yeah, I liked her too. So, enough of that. I like to talk to text everybody in the beginning because we usually only talk like on Tuesdays, and some DMs throughout the week. But thanks, Tex, for again being my partner on this show. And we've got, speaking of show, we got Donny Cho, who has a new show called Donny Cho Says Stuff, which is fantastic. I recorded a show with Donnie last night. It's going to come out on Wednesday. We talked 80s and 90s rock. So I'm looking forward to that one. But Donnie tonight is going to present us with, and I never heard these before, but he's got quite the paranormal life from what I understand. And enough of me babbling on. I'm going to bring up Donnie Show.
Hey,
Hey,
hi.
hey, Donnie. Long time no see, my
Hey,
friend.
long time no see. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to be
Yeah.
on a show with you gentlemen. I feel like we haven't. I feel like there's a Jason McLean sized hole on my screen right now, and I'm a little sad that he's not here because
It's a big hole to fill. It's a big
Yeah.
hole to fill.
yeah,
You know,
the
we all
gang's
know
not
that-
all here.
yeah. Well,
I miss him over on the porch. I'll tell you that.
yeah. I do too. I just miss Jason in general from doing shows, and I was doing the show with Jason and Donnie, and then. But hey, you know what? Things happen for a reason, and he's doing something different. And guess what? More power to him, and he's having success with it. So that's
Mhm.
awesome. And of course, he's got Donnie flanking him, and Donnie's always a good guy to have around for any talk show because Donnie's full of knowledge and a pretty smart guy in his own right.
And I think this is Donnie. I think this is only what, second or third time me and you actually talked.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, and there was one time I was actually on your show because I was subbing, like Jason was subbing for you, and he needed a co-host, and it was me and Brandy.
Yep.
And then Brandy's had internet problems, and it was just me and Jason. I was like, "Oh, this is like our regular show all over again." But yeah, that was a good time. And yeah, thanks for having me on that time when we were talking about Dogman. That was really cool. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to tonight. I think tonight should be fun.
It will be a lot of fun. And go ahead, Tex. I know you wanted to say something.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's the whole Dogman series that I did. We wrapped it up last night with the lovely Danielle Diva talking about European werewolves and versus American werewolves, and I had no idea that they had. I mean, I guess I did, but I didn't realize it. It was, they have they've had Dogman over there that they've been talking about for longer than we've been talking about having Dogman over here.
Yeah.
And she said the name of it, and basically it translates into Wolfman or Man Wolf. Man Wolf. But I can't remember the name of it. I couldn't say it anyway if I did, but it was a very interesting conversation last night. Very interesting conversation. So I got to figure out what we're going to do next. Getting ramped up for the Dogman Conference in September down here in Fort Worth.
I'm going to try to make it out there. I can't make guarantees, but I am going to try.
I'll tell you what, Donnie, if you make it down here, it's going to be a good one. But the only one we're going to be missing in the crew is Rob.
Yeah, it's me and you guys. And again, this one I did want to attend, and I got to tell you, and Tex kind of knows why. I play fantasy football, and again, I don't mean to bore our people listening, but really briefly, we always have a Labor Day weekend, and you guys, I'm getting old, you guys, because this is our 30th year in a row playing fantasy football. Yep, that's right. And it's grown. I mean, we have the same 12 guys. Now, there's 2 new guys because throughout the 30 years, 2 of our friends have passed away. So really, Texas, more than just fantasy football and getting together and drinking some beers and having a good time. We celebrate the deaths of the 2 friends we lost, and we've all grown up from grade school, high school, and some of us from college. And we don't get together that often, and the Labor Day weekend is the time we look forward not only for the draft, but to shoot the shit and get together because most of us are off doing our thing. And it's almost for me like Christmas Eve, man. And I'm a big fan of the holidays, and this is to me like a holiday. So I got an invite to go, perhaps speak at the conference, and as much as I wanted to, I had to turn it down. So because of that, and that's just the way it rolls, man. That's life, and but no regrets.
You're going to be missed, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a big one. And
the whole weekend, everyone's just going to be coming up to me and is like,
yeah,
"Hey, where's Rob?"
Well, I'm going to know that during the draft, I'll be on Facebook and I'll see all the pictures. Just like Krista and Brandy were sending off pictures that looked like Gatlinburg was a hell of a good time too. And,
I wanted to be there.
Yeah, that looked like a tremendous time. A lot of great folks were down there. But enough of that, I guess. And Donnie, thanks for coming on. And I'm quite pleased, actually, because I don't think we were talking last night, taping your show, and you said, you know what, Rob, I think I haven't done this too often, and I've got some paranormal experiences that I haven't really revealed to the quote unquote public. So I was like, wow, Donnie, thanks. That'd be cool. So if you want to give a little background, if you want to get into it, man, the floor is yours.
Okay. So my paranormal experiences were mostly spiritually based, like ghost spirits, things like that. I've never seen a dog man or a Bigfoot. I've never even seen a UFO. Okay. I don't look up very often. I'm constantly, when I walk down, I'm constantly just looking at my phone.
Right. Yeah.
Or like just kind of looking down at my feet or I don't really look up very often. And I don't know how I would react if I ever did see a cryptid, if that day ever comes, because I couldn't tell you if I'd be scared, shocked, frozen, panicked. That's one of those things that you don't know how you're going to respond once until it actually happens to you. But from the way it sounds, it's pretty terrifying. Ever since I got into the paranormal, I would go out like hiking in the woods or like walking my dog in the woods. And I would think, man, if a dogman or a Bigfoot popped out right now, what would I think? And I'm like, I probably would just be frozen in terror. Right.
Yeah.
So those kinds of experiences I've never had, but I can tell you about the first paranormal experience I ever had. And a bit of word of warning. This story is a bit dark in that it does involve instances of self-harm. Not
Okay,
me,
well,
but someone else.
yeah.
But just as a little disclaimer. So I remember the year was 1994. It was the summer where I had just finished my freshman year of high school, and this was the summer going in from freshman to sophomore year. And I remember it was 94 because this was like a few months after Kurt Cobain had died.
Okay.
So during the summer, one of my friends in my neighborhood, it was kind of like the hangout spot for all the kids in the neighborhood because he had the biggest yard and he had a dope pool and he had all the video games, right? So all the kids would just hang out at his place. And he would have these like pool parties, these neighborhood pool parties, and we would just ride our bikes over and we would just hang out in the pool all day and then play video games that night. And one day, it was the four of us. This was at like 10 a.m. in like the middle of June, right? We got there because we were expecting to go swimming, but then before we jumped into the pool, it was me, it was the three guys and one girl, and we were all the same age, 14, and my friend decides to bust out a Ouija board. None of us had ever had any experiences with Ouija boards. He had never had an experience with Ouija boards. We were all new to this thing. And our understanding at the time of Ouija boards were like, those magic 8 balls?
Yeah.
Where you shake it and then like you'll say like, oh, this girl that I have a crush on, does she like me? And then you shake it, you're like, please say yes, please say yes. That's how kids would do, right? So we treated it like that. Okay. So first of all, we all sat around the Ouija board. Mind you, this isn't at night. This is at like 10 in the morning. We're in our bathing suits next to a pool, right? In the middle of June on a sunny day. And we were all like these kids, they were like physics nerds, right? They were the kids that got like straight A's and so they tried to be all scientific. So we tried to have a control. We tried to figure out, okay, let's experiment so that we will intentionally try to push it so then we can figure out how to know that no one's pushing it, right? So throughout the course of the questioning, one of us would secretly try to push it, but then once people noticed, he would raise their hand and they'd be like, oh, I did it. It was me. And I tried it too. I tried to intentionally push it until we figured out that if you hold the planchette like you would piano keys, you can't push it because your fingers are going directly down. In order to force it to move, the friction with the board would cause the whole board to move. So when we held it like piano keys, we realized no one can push it. If you got your fingers to the side of the planchette, then you can push it, right? But if your fingers are going down, you can't.
Really quick, I often wondered, like with the Ouija board, because I've seen it, never done it in my life, but I always thought, man, it'd be easy just to move it around and pretend like you're having a communication. So unless you have your fingers manipulated like a piano key, there's no way you can do it, and you can't do it that way either.
Because we tried, and what would happen is the whole board would jerk.
Okay.
So if the planchette, if we're holding it like that, and the planchette's kind of just sliding around, then we know that's not us. Okay. And throughout the course of the day, initially it was like stupid kid questions, right? Oh, who am I going to marry? Who's going to be my first girlfriend? We're all 14, right? We're going through puberty. Oh, who's going to be my first kiss? Who am I going to take to the prom? What's going to be my job, right? That's all we're asking, right? And I remember throughout when it started, it was like at first real slow. Like it would barely budge to the point where we even thought this is all BS. We're going to give up, right? It gradually got faster and faster throughout the course of the day until we were actually getting answers, right? And then it was answering our questions, our silly kid questions, right? I remember one of the questions was, who's going to lose their virginity first? And then when it said me, I started dancing around the table. I got up, I just did my victory dance. All the other kids were like, Donnie, will you please stop dancing and sit down? We got more questions to ask, It was a fun time. And it was like a magic 8-ball on steroids. But we weren't asking like any serious questions yet.
Right.
Okay. But as it got along, the answers got longer. They got a little more complex. It ceased to be just one-word answers. It started to become like 2-word answers and 3-word answers. And then the planchette would slowly but surely start moving faster and faster. So eventually I got curious and I started asking it questions about it. So I was like, so what's your deal? At this point, we're well past the point of not believing it. This thing is actively and intelligently communicating with us. And then I'm like, so what's your deal? And it gave us a story about his name. Its name was like Ron, and he was like a farmer from the 1800s, and he was a good guy. It was giving us its story, and we were starting to give it a name. Yeah.
Hey, Donnie, really quick. Now, this is telling you the story from the Ouija board?
Yes.
And so this is now for people that maybe don't know. This is spelling out, hi, my name is so the planchette, you're following and writing down the letters, or you're just doing it in your head. Hey,
we're just reading it out aloud.
Just reading. Okay, I got you. Yeah, I've never done it, so I'm trying to
honestly,
and y'all were touching in the planchette at this time?
Yeah, we kept our fingers like piano key style.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And you know what? It really does feel like you're just in a chat room with like some supernatural being. It really did.
Wow. Okay.
So we started asking, like, what's the afterlife like? Like, oh, what's it like after you die? Like, now we're getting curious, right? But I remember its answers were all very coy and kind of like avoiding answering. It would give like these half answers. So we started noticing that. And then we started getting silly again, and we started asking about celebrities, right? We asked about, like, oh, do you see like Bruce Lee? Do you see JFK? Do you see Martin Luther King? We started asking about all these historical figures. Do you see Elvis? And then one of my friends was like, hey, Kurt Cobain just died. Why don't we ask about Kurt Cobain? And then it said, oh, yes, I do see Kurt here, right? But I remember this like yesterday. It's spelled C-U-R-T, not K-U-R-T, C-U-R-T. And everyone who knows, that's not how you spell his name.
Okay.
So when it's spelled C-U-R-T, my friend got up and he was like, yo, this thing spelled his name wrong. It was like, I think this thing is an idiot or is lying, right? So we were just kind of like, let's just say his name was Paul. Okay, I'm just going to give him a fake name. So, because he was kind of like a class clown, he was a joker. He had to be like the center of attention, right? And I remember this thing like was kind of playing along with some of our jokes. I noticed that as well. I remember at one point I asked it like, what's the name of my first girlfriend going to be? And it spelled out Joy, Joy,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Joy. Okay.
So I'm looking in the yearbook in our school to see if there was any girls named Joy. I noticed there was this one girl from like the year below us named Joy, but I was like, oh, she's kind of busted. I don't know about that. Turns out later that summer, I get my first ever dog. My uncle gave me this dog, and her name was Joy. So I was like, this Ouija board was yanking my chain. He was trolling me, but in like a funny way, right?
Yeah.
So it's playing along. It's kind of playful. It's answering our questions. It's getting faster to the point where now it's almost like real time. It's almost like talking to someone in a chat if they were just really slow at typing, and you could just see each individual letter come out. And then my friend Paul, he decides to troll this thing. He decides to make fun of it, mock it, and be like, "Hey, buddy, I think you're an idiot. You can't even spell Kurt Cobain's name right, right? And you know why you're dead? Because you're dumb." Like he was saying all this stuff, and this thing was starting to get mad. And at first, it was just like, "Please stop, right?" But my friend kept going because he had to be the center of attention. He keeps going, making fun of it, cursing at it, just mocking it, calling it a loser and an idiot. Now this thing's getting faster and faster. Now it's getting angry. And now it's cussing at him. It's saying stuff like, I hate you, get him out of here. Right. And then so we stopped. We were like, time out. The four of us, we get away from the table. We get into a huddle. And we're all sitting around in a circle talking about it, like as if like we had to spy, the thing was going to try to spy on us. So we had to.
Yeah.
So we were like, dude, are you sure you want to be doing this? Because he was the only one doing that. The three of us, we were actually getting kind of annoyed because we had wanted to keep asking it questions, but he was kind of like making a joke out of the whole thing, right? And I was like, yo, you sure you want to be mocking this thing and cussing at it? And he was like, he said, I remember this. He said to the three of us, have you ever turned on like the 10 o'clock news and heard in the news story a person getting killed by a ghost? No. He's like, yeah. Have you ever heard of a person getting killed by a ghost? And we're all looking at each other. We never heard of anyone getting killed by a ghost. He's like, yeah, they can't do anything. This guy can't do anything. Right. So he just goes back and he's mocking it so hard to the point now where it's going super fast. It's like the angrier it got, the faster the planchette got.
Yeah.
And it was to the point where it felt like we were playing on air hockey. Like those air hockey tables where there's like a thin film of air and there's like no friction and it's kind of like sliding around.
And this came about from this guy's attitude, right?
Yeah.
Then the planchette
and
picking up speed. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was getting angry, and now it was just a stream of cuss words going real fast to the point where we're like screaming. We can't believe how fast it is, because at this point it's like moving itself. Like our fingers are on it and it's going so fast, and we're all looking at each other all wide-eyed like, what the heck's going on? And it was because it was so angry. So eventually the thing was like, I'm going to kill you. It threatened to kill him. He's like, you're dead. I'm going to kill you. And then my buddy Paul was like, oh, yeah? How are you going to do it? I don't believe you. I think you're a wimp. I don't think you can do anything. And then so...
Can I ask you one really quick question? Is everybody around getting like freaked out now? Because right now I'm listening to this and I'm kind of like freaking out a little bit.
We were getting freaked out at the speed. Like even he was getting... he wasn't freaked out by it. I think he was more excited about it, which kind of motivated him to go even harder.
Okay.
So he was really trying to test it to see how fast it could go. Eventually where it was like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to get you. And then my buddy Paul was like, oh yeah? How are you going to do it? Tell me. Because I don't think you can do anything. And then it said, I'm going to make you do it in 3 years.
Really?
And he was laughing it off. Me and the other two kids were just looking at each other like, man, are you sure you want to be doing this? Because again, he had to be the center of attention. I remember when senior year first started. It was like the first week of school, and when we found out that kid Paul had taken his own life, the whole school was shocked because he was like a really popular kid, straight A. He was on his way to like Columbia and stuff, near the top of the class, and everyone, all the teachers, all the students were shocked, but also it was the circumstances behind when we learned what happened. It was weird. So what eventually all the kids in our class found out was that this kid Paul, one of the things about him was he was starved for female attention. Like, he was desperate for it. He was like this short, nerdy Indian kid who looked and sounded a lot like Steve Urkel. You know how Steve Urkel was like always aggressive towards Laura in Family Matters? Like, even, he was like all about her. He was kind of like that with like a lot of the girls. I mean, this guy was just desperate for female attention, right? Because he was such a nerd. So one day he gets invited by this like gothy girl in our class who's actually like really pretty, but like gothy, and all the other kids were kind of intimidated by her because she had like no friends, and in all her textbooks and in all her locker would be all these like satanic like upside down pentagrams and Hail Satan and all that stuff, and none of the kids wanted to be around her. And she invited him out to hang out at her place to do psychedelic drugs. This kid was a kid who studied, going to Columbia, got like almost perfect SAT scores, never done a drug in his life, but she was really pretty, and he wanted, he was so enamored by her attention and the fact that she invited him to hang out with her at her house, right? This really pretty gothy girl. And I guess he had done the psychedelics, and he was driving home all in a state of mind that he was not used to. Crashes his car like a mile away from his home at like 3 a.m. Proceeds to take one of those like cargo cables and hangs himself in the woods.
God.
3 years, like the thing said it would. It said, I'm going to make you do it in 3 years. Here's the thing, though. I remember at the time when I was living through it, and when like half the school showed up to his funeral and stuff. At the time, I wasn't even thinking about the Ouija board thing. I wasn't. I did not put that together. Because that Ouija board story took place at the end of our freshman year, and then sophomore and junior year happens, senior year happens. You're going through all this stuff as a teenager. I'm not even thinking about that. That was like my first, last, and only time ever using a Ouija board. But in this story is probably the reason why I got into the paranormal in the first place, because my epiphany moment was when I was back in this was 2017. I was in my buddy's restaurant. My childhood best friend owned a restaurant at the time, and we were kind of living together like as roommates. And we would always hang out the back of the restaurant, and we were just watching. We were just watching, like, one of the coworkers had his daughter. She would sometimes like sit at the table, and like this 7-year-old girl, and she had an app that was a Ouija board on her phone, and she was playing with it. And I asked her father, I was like, yo, you let her just play with a Ouija board app? They have Ouija board apps? And he's like, yeah, you can apparently communicate with ghosts. And I'm like, does she do this a lot? And he's like, oh, she's glued to that thing. She does it every day. And I'm like, crap. And then he asked me, well, what do you know about Ouija boards? So I told him the story. Not up to this point, I didn't even put those two things together until that moment in 2017 is when I first realized, oh crap, that Ouija board totally said it was going to make him do it in 3 years. And then 3 years later, he did it. When I first remembered that and like realized that, I was like, oh my God. That's when I had my eureka moment, and that's when I first got into the paranormal. So,
yeah,
yeah, I gotta agree with who was it that said that in chat? Let me back up here a second. Dadgummit, I lost it. Said that the golf girl was being used by the spirit.
yeah, I remember reading that.
Yeah.
I mean, this girl was like cartoonishly satanic, you know. It was like on all of her clothes, her jewelry. You know, usually if you ever meet a Satanist, I don't know. I think they try to at least sort of hide it, but not this girl. No way. You know, this girl looked like she came out of a Marilyn Manson concert. You know, all like pale makeup, everything all black, and all of her rings and her jewelry are all satanic imagery. And even though she was like objectively a very pretty girl, when she walked down the hallways, like kids would just kind of, you know, scooch to the side because she was just, yeah.
And that's the reaction she was after too.
Yeah. She was.
Yeah, it was Radio Vault that said it. And I totally agree with him. I mean, we deal with a lot of paranormal on these shows that we do, you know, and I mean, we know mediums. I mean, we know psychics, and I mean, Danielle Diva, you know, and she does the cards, and I don't know anybody that I know of that actively uses a Ouija board. But personally, I draw the line at cards and Ouija boards for some reason. It's like me and black cats. I don't. It's one of my things. I don't. If a black cat crosses my path, I will go a block out of my way to cross the path again to break it. It's
Really?
Oh yeah. It's. I don't know. I know it's stupid. In my mind, I know it's stupid, but I got to do it. You know.
In Korean culture,
but then I'll go up to these. I'll go in these haunted houses and stuff and call these things out and everything. I know I don't make any sense at all, but you know.
So, in Korean culture, they got this thing where you're never allowed. You should never write a person's name with red ink because that's like marking them for death.
You should never write a person's name with red ink.
Yeah. It's like that's like the big superstition there. And it's not like bad luck. It means like you're dooming them. They're gonna
really.
Yeah.
Man, how did these Korean kids ever get by in American schools? They love red ink in American schools.
Oh, they do, man. Girls always wrote red and green ink, I remember.
Yeah, they do. They love their red ink in those American schools, that's for sure. But
they loved it when I was there. I know that, or maybe it was just me. I don't.
So I
mean, that's not even the worst Ouija board story I ever heard. I remember one time I went to this, like, it wasn't a conference, it was like a meetup where they had like, it was a talk, right? You know how in conferences you give those lectures, but you kind of cycle through all the different speakers. This was just one speech, right? And it was local, and I just saw it on the internet, and I was like, oh, cool, ghost stuff, and it's nearby. I'll go and check it out. And the speakers, they were like actual like demonologists, and they were on TV and all that, and they would like help families who are under spiritual attack. And he gave one story where this woman had called him in for help because in her family, like her 5 sons started playing with the Ouija board together. 5 of them, 5 brothers. And after they started, 4 of them had taken their own lives. Jeez. Of the 5.
Wow.
In the same family. And I'm like, oh my God, that is probably the worst Ouija board story I've ever heard.
That's Von Erich level stuff there.
It is. I was thinking that.
So then I'll have to ask you, Donnie, when it comes to the Ouija boards, you are against. Let me ask you, maybe not against. Would you sit down over this weekend coming up?
Mm-hmm.
Would you sit down with a group of friends and utilize one for whatever
Hell
purpose?
no. Hell no. That last time, that one time, that was it for me. I was like, none of this, please. Right?
Well, I tell you
Okay,
what,
I remember the scariest moment. The scariest moment was after it said that it was going to make him do it in 3 years. We asked it, "Where are you right now?" And it was
Yeah.
like, "I'm under the table right now." So we all like jumped back and looked under the table. We were like, "Oh my
Oh
god!"
man, and I do have to ask you this question because I learned this from our Blondes and Booze partners, and I never would have thought of this till I met them sometime when I met them. Did you guys? And maybe you didn't. Did you close out the Ouija board?
Oh,
Tell it.
I slammed it. I was like, "Goodbye." I took the planchette and I football spiked it on goodbye. I was like, "Goodbye," and I slammed it down. It's
Now I
like,
don't know
"No,
how
you
you're.
ain't following us home. No way."
Yeah, I don't technically know if you have to say something to the entity or the spirit, but I think
Yeah. Oh, Rob's frozen.
I messed with the Ouija board one time. Me and my
Mhm.
ex-wife.
Oh.
It was back when we weren't even married yet, and we were just dating. So it was a long time ago. Um, but a friend of ours had left one over at my apartment, and me and her were there. And we were like, okay, who can we contact that wouldn't be mean or hurt us or
Mhm.
whatever. And we decided to try to contact my mother, sweetest woman you ever met in your life. And I don't even remember the question we asked. The first question we asked, the planchette moved. We were done. I mean, it just went,
By
and then
itself?
we were done.
Whoa.
It was like, nope, no more. I hadn't touched
Yeah.
one since. Don't want to.
Hell no.
They're creepy,
Hell
man.
no. No.
They're
Actually, you
creepy.
know what? I have done table tipping though, which is sort of like Ouija board, but that's more about the people that you do it with. Because for table tipping to work, you got to do it with like psychics and mediums. So like everyone in the room when I did it, they were all like, some of them were actually like renowned like mediums, right? And psychics and sensitives and people who have like published books and stuff and actual, professionals. So doing it in that kind of setting where you're around like professional mediums and psychics who can actually like, okay, I see that there and I see that there and I see that there. That's a very different experience. But if you're just like a rando, that's like someone who's never fired a gun before handling a firearm, never took a
Right.
less gun safety course, right?
Yep. Somebody asked, said you ought to Google the goth girl and see what she's up to.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whatever happened to her. Man.
So what about the other members of the group of friends that were there?
We never talked about it. Well, I mean, we stayed friends all throughout high school, and we're still like Facebook friends. But we
Right.
after that day, that day we did the Ouija board, we never brought it up again, ever. Even at his funeral, we were all there. None of us put that together. We weren't thinking about that when Paul had passed away.
And y'all, but after you put it together, you never called him and said, "Look, hey."
Yeah, see, by the time I put it together, I was like, what, 37, 38, just fresh off the boat to the States for like 2 years. Because I've been living in Korea for 10 years, but then I came back in 2015. So I was still trying to like figure things out. And yeah, I just suddenly realized, oh my God, because I hadn't thought about that Ouija board incident until I was talking about Ouija boards with my,
Right.
buddies, coworkers about it. Then I suddenly remembered. Everything good, Rob?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into it. It's
Okay.
just, it's just, I mean, come on. It happens. It always happens on this show lately. I don't know. But anyways,
So you never mentioned it to him, even though you're Facebook friends, and
Never once. Because I don't know if they even, because you don't know if people are open minded to that kind of stuff. They might think that. And plus, it's the passing of our friends, so it's kind of a sore topic to bring up.
yeah.
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 Well, I'll tell you what, that's one of those things that if you don't believe in it, it's an awful big coincidence.
You know what I can
Funnily,
never understand really quickly? First of all, I would never play with the Ouija board. I mean, I'm kind of, with the paranormal in me, I'm kind of like, ugh, I'm just freaked out about it. I know you shouldn't be because there's healthy aspects, I guess.
Mhm.
But you know what I can never understand, you guys and people listening? It's Milton Bradley, Hasbro, whoever I mean, it's like, it's a game that you buy 10, 12 bucks, whatever they cost. You bring it home, you think it's an innocent game, and it just creates havoc. I
Mhm.
suppose that you could probably conjure up anything, though. You could probably make your own Ouija board, or
You
how you
could, yeah,
see people draw chalk and
you
make
could
the
do it with a piece of cardboard and a marker.
yeah.
Yeah.
I could never get past that, how crazy that is, because it's, to me, I don't know. I definitely believe it, okay, but it's like, it's unimaginable, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I just can't fathom it. I can't.
You ever see anyone with a Ouija board tattoo?
Oh yeah,
Oh, and
Yeah.
I never have, really.
I have.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I saw one girl, again, the goth, subculture, whatever you want to call it. She had one across her back. Like,
I mean, wouldn't you be like permanently marked for nothing but bad karma?
If that's not a red flag, I don't know what is, Actually,
Never mind. I was going to say something, but go ahead, Tony.
I actually have a pretty interesting table tipping story, which is kind of like the opposite. I've had later
what's this whole
afterwards.
table tipping thing? Explain that real quick.
Okay, so table tip, it's like a special type of table where it's longer than it is it's taller than it is wide. So it's like a little like end stand kind of table, right? It's circular, it's small, and then it's got it's just one base, like one rod, and then the feet are all splayed out. And you're supposed to put your fingers on it. You sit in a group and put your fingers on it, same way like you would like a planchette. But the idea of table tipping is you do it with more mature people, with more positive intentions, and you do it in a place where it's actually, because where we did it was at the Hoover House, which is a famously haunted location. You don't just do this in your backyard or in your basement. Like, we were in a famously haunted house with a bunch of like older and professional psychics doing this. And I'm only there just to hang out with my friends. I wasn't even trying to participate. I was good just sitting on the couch in the corner, just observing and just hanging out with my friends. That's all I was there for. And
thank you, Cynthia.
Thanks, Cynthia.
And so basically you ask it questions and the table moves, right? Kind of based off like the type of question it is. But when you say table tipping, you think, oh, it's just tipping. It doesn't just tip. It like moves. It like, when they're in contact with a spirit, and let's say a spirit will like try to hug someone, it'll actually lean in very slow and gently into that person. There was this one instance they talked about where the table was actually started to like walk towards one person across the room.
So it's totally different from cow tipping. I got you.
Yeah. I think cows only tip one way. So I mean, this table would do things like I remember when I did it, it wouldn't just tip like one direction and one way. There were points when I have, and here's the other thing: just like a planchette, your fingers are going down perpendicular on it, right? It's really hard to move around on your own. And when I was doing it, there were times when it felt like it was actually vibrating. I was like, "What is this going on right now?" Right? So that night, there was this like real famous medium who came there for like a speech, right? Because they had like it was an event, so they had like psychics there, and I was just sitting in the corner on the desk, and then the medium guy who came there to speak at the event, he just stands up out of nowhere and he just points at me. He's like, "You, sir, I need you here right now at the table," and I'm like, "Why?" And remember, Hoover House, this is a famously haunted place, right? There's like 20 some odd ghosts, all from different eras. It used to be a speakeasy and then like a senior home where a bunch of people died. There are a lot of ghosts, right? And, he's a medium, so he can actually see it. So he was like, I just saw this old Asian woman like just land down in the middle of the room. And she was wearing like these long white robes, kind of like I hate to say it, like she had a white pointed hat and like a long white shawl. And me being the only Asian guy in the room, it's pretty obvious who she was there for, right? and when she landed, he said that like all the ghosts and the spirits that were like gathered around or who are waiting to like talk to different people, like family members, they all just exploded out of the room.
Wow.
And he was like, I've never seen a spirit like this before, sir. You need to sit down here right now. And he's like staring at her and he's all bug-eyed. And, this guy's a medium, right? And then, we ask him, like, what do you see? Like, what do you see? And he's like, she's staring me down something fierce, like kind of like looking at me as if I'm like a weird alien. And I'm like, well, yeah, you're like literally the first white dude she's ever seen.
Wow.
She's Donny, like, where in the heck am I? So it turns out she was
Donny. Really quick, I hate to interrupt you, but we got to go take our 5-minute break here at the break. I will continue on with that. Donny Cho from Donny Cho Says Stuff. We'll be back with Donny with his awesome stories. Thanks to Donny for joining. Thanks for everybody for watching and tuning in today. We will be back in 5.
Four minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. Three minutes. We're almost there. 2-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. One minute. 1 minute.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond BMR with my buddy Tex and, of course, Donny Cho. For everybody listening, Donny Cho, he started a new channel several weeks ago. Donny Cho Says Stuff. Fantastic show. It's a little different. It's a fantastic and it's an entertaining show. In fact, I was on recorded a show with Donnie last night. It's coming out, I think, Wednesday. We talked 80s and 90s rock bands. So tune in to Donnie. Please subscribe to Donnie Show. Thank you so much for that. Also, thank you to Scott and Cynthia for your awesome super chats, your super stickers. Of course, the super chat, the super stickers are a great way to help support what we do here. I do appreciate that. Tex appreciates it. We all do across all of our channels. And in fact, our channels are Texas Front Porch. Subscribe on Mondays, 9 o'clock in the East. Tuesday, Van Buren Variety. He comes on at 8 o'clock in the East. Bob's got a great channel. Go please subscribe to him. Beyond BMR, of course, at 9 o'clock in the East. Jason McLean does something called Mysterious Library and Untold Radio AM. Check out Jason. And don't forget to subscribe to Jason McLean on YouTube. He's got a fantastic channel, and he hosts that along with Donny Cho. It's a little different. They drop very good videos that they do put on YouTube in a live chat forum, pre-recorded. But check out Jason, show him some love. Wednesday, Texas Front Porch, the Diva Dimension, 12 o'clock, midnight in the East. Thursday, brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, and Krista, 1 o'clock in the East. And of course, the Blondes, the Booze, the Paranormal Podcast. Please subscribe to them. Of course, on YouTube, they are on at 9 in the East on Thursday. Friday, you want a little woo mixed in with the Booze, the Blondes, the Booze, the Paranormal Podcast is back at you at 9 in the East. Saturdays, 3 in the East, 3 o'clock in the East, Texas Front Porch. Tex, Daniel Diva, Infamous Minds, it's true crime. Fascinating, especially if you are a true crime buff. Please check that out. And of course, I always mention our buddy across the Porch Network, Jessica Jones, Saturday and Sunday, Spaced Out Radio at 10. She is the Cryptid Huntress. Check her on out. With that being said, I'm going to bring up my main man, Tex, and Donnie. Donnie's, doing what he's doing right now. Fantastic show thus far. Tex, and before Donnie comes back up, Tex, you got anything you'd like to got anything going on, Tex? Tex, what do you got going on before we get back to Donnie? I'll give you a little airtime.
We just had the documentary come out that I was featured on, that Small Town Monsters did. The Texas Dogman Triangle, Werewolves in the Lone Star State. That's out there. Hey, Jessica, you can catch it on Amazon, or you can go watch it free on YouTube or Tubi, that type of thing, or you can go to their channel and pick it up, or their website. I had a great time doing it with those folks. Great people, great freaking people. We got let's see, we got the next 2 episodes of Infamous Minds are going to be pretty crazy. We talk about on the next episode coming out Saturday. We're talking about the pig farm killer out of Canada, and then the next one we're going to be talking about the toolbox killer. And I tell you what, these 2 fellas are, stuff is off the rails, man. But it's you
know what Tex you got to do. You know what you got to do, Tex, to kind of balance out the darkness. You should have another show, maybe like on a Sunday or later that day, called Sweetie Pies. And on each episode, you feature a different sweetie pie. Like, for example, like one would be on like Mr. Rogers. The other one would be on like Bob Ross. Just like really nice, wholesome, positive people. Because, sometimes all that killer stuff is just so dark. So dark.
It is dark. Speaking of dark, I'm frozen.
Oh, no. I would like to see you, Tex, talk about Mr. Rogers. I think that would be an interesting conversation.
I grew up working. I grew up watching Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah,
so did I. Yeah,
and he was annoyingly nice.
He was the world's greatest sweater model.
Yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
That and loafers.
Yes.
But I loved his show. I did. I loved his show as a kid.
You guys can hear me, correct?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Yeah.
I just have my beautiful smiling face. I have to get a new video camera, I guess, because as long as you can hear me, at least I have a good picture of me up there.
And you do have a beautiful smile there, Rob.
Yeah, Hey, Tex, you're talking really quick about Mr. Rogers. I never seen the dude, never seen the show, but I will tell you this. Back in the 80s, Eddie Murphy did Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Was it anything like that?
No.
Okay.
I remember Mr. Rogers did an episode with Lou Ferrigno, and he was still in his Hulk makeup and everything. And I was like, damn, Mr. Rogers and the Hulk, that's awesome.
I'm going to have to look that one up. I did not see that.
Yep, he visited Lou Ferrigno on the set of the Hulk, and then he did like a little mini interview with him. And I was like, that's awesome.
Wow. A lot of people don't know that Lou Ferrigno was deaf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that. I knew Lou was deaf.
I love me some Lou Ferrigno.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah.
And I hate to hear, and I've heard that in real life he's kind of a jerk.
Really?
I really hated to hear that.
Remember the Lou Ferrigno Hercules movie?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Was it?
He was on that Conan gravy train for a while.
Yeah, Hercules in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
so
there was quite a few people that jumped on that gravy train for a while.
Yeah, the whole barbarian epic. Everyone was trying to copy Arnold and be like Conan. But there were some good ones like Beastmaster that came out. I like that one. But
yeah.
I
like, we're talking about Mr. Rogers and that type of thing. My favorite show was Captain Kangaroo.
Oh, never saw that one.
I did
No.
see that. I saw that. I kind of liked it, and I also liked. Before we get, sorry, Daddy, we'll get back to finish up your last story.
Mhm.
The other one I liked right after that was, and I cannot stand clowns. Another phobia I have is clowns. But there was this one show I can't.
Bozo.
Yeah,
I
jeez.
loved Bozo the
He
Clown.
came out right after Mr. Captain Kangaroo. In fact, Captain Kangaroo turned me on to Captain Crunch. I know it's not related, but there you have it. So I'm irritated that I'm frozen. However, Mr. Donny Cho from Donny Cho Says Stuff, were you finishing up that story, or do you want to move on to another, or do you want to tie the ends together on that, man?
Oh, yeah, I can finish off that story.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounded so weird. So
No, only Donny.
So yeah, this old Korean lady lands in the middle of this table tipping session, and one of the things do have to mention that I want to mention his name because he's actually pretty well known, and he's a real good, like, I love this guy, and he should be someone you get as a guest on a show because this guy I stand behind this guy in terms of his mediumship. And what he would do is he would actually like speak for whatever is there, because he could perceive them and he could speak for them, and then the table itself would move in response to what he was saying, not just tipping, but like sometimes vibrating, sometimes shaking, sometimes scooching, right? So this thing is like dancing around. And when my, I guess, great grandmother shows up, he's all bug-eyed. He's like, I can't speak. She's like in my face right now, staring me down, and I'm trying to communicate with her, but she doesn't understand a word that I'm saying. So I'm like, oh, okay. So if she's my great grandmother, then that means she was alive like in the late 1800s, early 1900s in Korea on my mom's side, in the countryside of Gwangju, which means she's literally never seen in her entire life anyone who was not Korean. So
Wow.
she's looking at everyone like they're aliens. She's trying to speak to everyone in Korean. Table's not moving. We're trying to ask questions. There's no communication going on until like a light bulb goes off in my head, and I'm like, what if I ask the questions in Korean? So the medium would actually ask me the question. I would translate it out in Korean, say it out loud, and then like the table started moving. So we spent the whole session like that.
So
But he
let
was
me ask
also
you this: Did you ever ask her a question without him knowing what you were asking?
yes.
Okay.
And then at one point it got so crazy that I actually just didn't even say anything and just thought the question, and then the table still moved in response, which freaked me out, honestly. But then as the session progressed, he was able to like communicate. I don't know how he did it, but he was able to like kind of pick up on images that she wanted to put in his head. But as the story goes, on my mother's side, I don't know anything about my mother's family past my grandma, because they don't mention it. Because when he described what she was wearing, that white pointy like cloak with the white shawl, I was like, oh, that's a Korean shaman. That's what, and I just busted out a picture of what a Korean shaman looked like. And Korean shamans, they're kind of like voodoo practitioners. You know, they deal with a lot with like ghosts and magic. And my mom's side of the family, they became real Christian, like very Christian. So it made sense that they never mentioned her to me or my brother or anyone in our generation. They would not talk about her because,
But she was a shaman, actually.
according to the medium, what he said, and I kind of pieced together, and then throughout the course of the conversation, she was talking about how, yes, I was a shaman, and your family doesn't talk about me to you because they're very conservative Christian, like very Protestant conservative, right? So I guess the whole point of that was she was just like, this boy's mine, talking about me to him, right? This house, this Hoover house, this was right outside Gettysburg.
Mm.
The whole area is just super duper haunted. And this house in particular was super duper haunted. And later that night, I remember me and like the friends I was there with, we decided to go to one of the most haunted locations at Gettysburg, like outside Gettysburg, not on the battlefield because you can't really get there at night, but the I think it was like the Eisenhower Bridge or one of the president, like he had a farm near there and there was a bridge named after him, but that bridge was known as like Suicide Bridge. And they stacked up soldiers' bodies there. We decided to investigate that place at 3 a.m. It was like a 20-minute drive from that house. So we go there, and it's me and my buddies. It's 2 guys, 1 girl, and they're having all sorts of crazy, weird experiences. Like they're feeling like fingers grabbing their like legs, touching their skin. They're all wearing long pants. They're all like wearing jeans and stuff, right? So it's like touching them through their clothes, and they're feeling it like compelled to move to like the edge of the bridge, which was weird because the bridge was only like it was a little bridge. It wasn't like, if you jumped off, you would fall like maybe 6 feet and then land on the ground.
Right.
It was a bridge over like a little stream. So it didn't make sense that like people would jump off of it. You might break your ankle or something, but that's it. But they all felt this weird compulsion to like move to the edge of the bridge because they felt like all these fingers that were grabbing them and like pulling them. And a couple of them were starting to actually like freak out.
Huh.
And it was as you're crossing this bridge. Now the bridge itself is very long and it's supposedly super duper haunted. There's all this graffiti all over it. The whole area looks real creepy. 3 a.m. in like the countryside, no lights around. And it's like a historically.
So did you ever ask your family about your great grandmother?
Never. It would be too awkward.
Really?
Conservative Korean Christian people, if they knew that they had someone like that in their family, they sweep it under the rug. Yeah. I've thought about asking like relatives about it, but the problem is like my mom's whole side of the family, they're all over in Korea. So yeah, I don't get too many opportunities to talk to them. I did when I was living in Korea, but
Donnie,
Yeah.
we were talking, last night we had the opportunity to talk because we were doing a video for your show. And I thought it was very interesting how you brought up about the paranormal coming with the Asian folks, right?
Yeah.
And how they viewed it as they didn't talk about it, and
Asian people don't talk about it.
Yeah, and then but they come out with these movies that are just so out there. And you were mentioning the other night about it's perhaps the Asian community venting on their frustrations behind it. I thought that was interesting last night.
I know. I remember when I was in New Jersey, I had a lot of like Chinese American friends and Malaysian friends and a couple of like Southeast Asian, like Vietnamese friends.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them had ghost family curse encounters, ghost encounters, a lot of them. And some of their stories were super scary, right? But when you ask them like, why don't Asian people talk more openly about this stuff? And they're like, dude, we're too scared to talk about this stuff. We're too scared to talk about this stuff out in the open. We're too scared that it might attract like unwanted attention.
There's a lot of people are like that, and that's the whole, Tulpa thing, give it energy, talk about it. You basically end up summoning something. So, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. And I think that's part of it because they think that if you talk about it, like you said, they do summon something. So they're just like, they don't even want to entertain that possibility. So they'll like shy away from the topic. Yeah. UFOs and cryptids, not so much though.
I want to get your opinion on something, man. Not to do with paranormal, but it's just the guy that ran over across the border over there. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I heard about that. That boy is screwed.
what was he thinking?
That boy is screwed. Another thing I can reveal about myself, a little bit about my family history. So my mom's family's from Gwangju, which is kind of like the countryside in South Korea. They're like my mom's family side of the family. They're like Korean rednecks. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Korean Asian rednecks. We do have our version of rednecks. Trust me.
Yeah, well, not really, but I now
Asian
my interest is now piqued, Donnie.
Yeah, we don't tell you foreigners about them very often, and we don't show them. But we got our fair share of our version of rednecks. Oh boy, I got some. My mom's side of the family, some of my uncles. Oh my god, some of the stuff they would eat. Yeah, that's a whole other podcast topic in and of itself. My dad's side of the family was actually from North Korea, but they made it over to South Korea during the war. So yeah, so we hear some of the stories of what goes down in North Korea, like what really goes down, and it's pretty gnarly, man. It's pretty gnarly. And that guy just willingly ran over there. Dude, he's screwed.
And see, Can a Dummy asks or says that he's a psyop, and that is not out of the realm of possibility. You know,
I don't know. Part of that story.
That's kind of a kamikaze mission.
I feel like he was more of a mentally ill moron.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't mess with North Korea, man.
I'm surprised he even made it to the prison, to be honest with you.
Can I tell you about the darkest thing I ever heard that goes on in some of these North Korean gulags is?
Absolutely.
I've heard some real dark stories. One of the darkest stories, though, is what they would do is because they lock up entire families.
Right.
That's how they keep people under control, right? If you get if you get accused of a crime, you don't just get arrested. Your parents, your siblings, your wife or your husband, and your kids all go to the gulag.
Right.
That's why nobody even dares messes with the North Korean government, right? That's how they keep people under control. It's like they call it the 3-generational punishment or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently what goes down, as I've heard, now I cannot corroborate any of these. These are just rumors that I've heard as a Korean person, right? They would actually, if one of the members of the family died in the gulag, they would like force you to actually eat that body. And if you refuse, they start executing your other members of the family.
Wow.
That's like next level. You know?
I can't, if that's true, it wouldn't surprise me. But that does, man, that's, but what a great propaganda story too. I mean, but yeah, I mean, it's the way things are done over there. It would not surprise me at all. I mean, they're taught that guy, is basically immortal,
Yeah.
And I don't know how they explain their deaths, because I've heard that he's a supernatural being or whatever, and he's so perfect and everything. He doesn't even go to the bathroom. He doesn't, all this crazy stuff about him.
Another one I heard, and this one was from multiple sources. There's a lot of, like, in the countryside, right? In the North Korean countryside, these villages are just anything goes, right? There's no infrastructure. There's no government, really. There's no food. There's nothing. And everyone's just in desperation mode.
Yeah.
And there's so many orphans running around because they're either abandoned or their parents die and whatever, or they get locked up. And they're just running around pretty much like stray cats. But instead of a city full of stray cats, you'll just see all these stray kids wandering around. And apparently there are like bands of people with like nets and stuff trying to round these kids up for food. like legitimately like trying to catch them for food. You know, and
Well,
that kind of stuff does go down. It does go down like that sometimes.
They put, and I will say this, they put on some good dog and pony shows when they release stuff to the public, but they, But you see the pictures that come out of there with all the happy kids in the classrooms where the computers aren't even plugged in, and stuff. Yeah. It's like,
yeah, Asia's got a lot of dark stuff, man. We got our fair share of dark stuff as well, and we've got our fair share of like angry spirits and ghosts and demons.
Well, y'all got your share of cryptids over there too.
Not okay, so Korea doesn't really have any, but I understand why, because the entire country of South Korea is basically just the size of like Indiana or Ohio. It's like the size of Ohio. I think it was either Ohio or Pennsylvania. It was one of those states where I actually looked it up one day. How big is this state? Is South Korea, like which state? And I think it was like Pennsylvania. Imagine the entire population of Canada living in a state the size of Pennsylvania. That's what South Korea is. So there's not real much open areas.
Right.
It's pretty jam-packed. There's not like wilderness like America has, right?
But don't it's mainly it's mainly water cryptids over there, isn't it?
There are water cryptids I have heard about, and there were the most famous Korean cryptid actually happened in North Korea. So we can't access it. It's on this mountain called Mount Paektu, which is it's a really gnarly looking mountain because it's the biggest mountain in Korea, China. But on top of it is a lake.
Mm.
It's basically just a volcanic crater that filled up with water. And apparently there have been sightings of like weird, like dinosaur looking things in there.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple ones. So, but unfortunately you can't investigate it because it's deep in North Korean territory.
Right.
So,
hey, when I kind of my computer kind of or whatever crapped out, I missed the dark story, and so I was reading in chat trying to catch up about what you guys were talking about. We don't have to revisit that, but I do have to ask you. So we talked about the paranormal, then I kind of blanked out. Text asked about the cryptids. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you can speak on that is something that maybe we haven't heard of here in the States that perhaps your culture finds to be absolutely terrifying outside of the paranormal?
I can tell you one I actually learned about through studying about Korean shamanism.
All right.
According to a Korean shamanic lore, they go real deep into ghosts. Like they get actually real deep on it. Like they explain, like, for example, why do some people become ghosts and some people don't? Like, why are some murder victims becoming ghosts, but then not all murder victims? And why do some people who die like naturally become ghosts? Right? It explains that it's not so much how you die. It's more about if you're someone who died in a way that you weren't fated to. Like that, it like what every person who was born, their death has already been determined. But if it ever gets to a point where they die in a way that wasn't that defies that determined plan, those are the people who become ghosts.
Hmm.
So even if someone dies horribly in a murder, if they were fated to die that way, then they wouldn't become a ghost.
Well, but how do you know you're fated to die that way?
Hmm.
That's the idea of reincarnation.
What?
It has to do a lot with reincarnation. The concept for them is that souls are constantly in a cycle of death and rebirth, death going to the afterlife, then you're born again, right? So in each of these cycles, it's already been determined because in the previous cycle, let's say, for example, you lived until you were 120 years old. Right. So then in the next cycle, it's like, okay, well, if I had this in this cycle, then I guess in the next cycle, I guess I'll just die young and violently, And it's all part of that learning process. But if something happens that throws a monkey wrench in that and you don't follow the plan and you die in a completely different way, That's what they say is what causes someone to be a ghost.
So is there some way that you're told what your death is going to be beforehand, or
It's more like you decide before you even decide to be born on this earth.
So at death, you can decide if
Yeah.
you want to be reincarnated
It's
or
like
you
your
want to go
higher
to the
self
light.
or whatever. Yeah, that's like their philosophy.
And it's kind of interesting with the different cultures. Like,
Mhm.
I guess in America, and it's not for everybody. I get it. You
Mhm.
believe in God, therefore you believe in the devil. So you got demons, the devil, Jesus, and all that. So I'm wondering then in the different cultures which you're familiar with, is that culture still believe in a god, or is you talk about the shamans, but a god or a demon, or is that
They
like
believe in
totally
like multiple
different?
gods. They believe in like multiple
Okay.
gods. Yeah.
So would they believe in like a multiple evil force, like
It's
multiple
weird because
devils, demons?
it's the weird thing is that they believe in all these multiple Asian like ancient gods, like these animism, like spirit gods, kind of like Thor and Odin, like those kinds of gods.
Mm-hmm.
But they also believe in Buddha. It's kind of like they're like those Santa Muerte religions where they combine like mystical thinking and like dark magic, but they also incorporate like um Catholicism in there with like
right.
saints. And it's kind of like that with Buddhism and like these ancient old gods. They kind of mesh them together. Another interesting thing I learned in Korean shamanism is that there is actually a way to destroy a ghost, like cause it to die the second time. It's not easy, but it is technically possible. And it explains that the way to do it is you have to wipe out all blood trace from its living relatives.
So it doesn't
Meaning,
involve a proton pack.
yeah, it's not direct descendants, but anyone who might be distantly related to it by blood. If you get rid of that, that would kill them for good.
So you have to kill everybody in the family
Who's even distantly related. Now that's real hard to do, right? Especially in a place like America where everyone's mixed. But if you take a small country where people are isolated, like Korea, and then like they wipe out entire family groups all in one go, that they say is the way you can or could completely destroy a ghost. It's not easy, and it's not common.
I wonder if that's what's kind of behind the whole North Korean taking in so many generations type thing.
I mean, it's a pretty effective method of controlling
I guess
someone.
maybe they believe that. I guess they're cutting off the beliefs for that many generations. Maybe I guess they're trying to weed it out. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, perhaps. Donnie, kind of reminds me what you're just talking about killing a loved one. Kind of reminds me of with like the Wendigo. If you were cursed with the plague of the Wendigo, to break the curse, you'd have to kill a loved one or whoever was the person that supposedly cast that onto you. Correct? So it kind of there's kind of a similarity. So I find that to be interesting.
The other part of Korean lore, and this is actually pretty common in a lot of its like mythology, the worst ghost to ever come across, they call it the egg ghost. Why do they call it the egg? Because it's not that the ghost itself looks like an egg, but it's because the face is completely blank and the surface of it looks like the surface of an eggshell. So you'll see like an apparition of a person, but where the face should be, it's like the shell of an egg. It's just completely blank and featureless. And that's why they call it the egg ghost. And according to this shamanic lore, if you see an apparition like that, then you're pretty much as good as dead. Because what an egg ghost is a ghost that is on the verge of dying the second death, being completely destroyed because there's very few family members left and the last one is dying or whatever. And when you see that, what it's basically doing is trying to take someone out, like take someone with it, Like I have limited time left in this dimension. I'm going to take someone out with me while I'm on my way out. You know, that's why, and that's why they call them the egg ghost. And apparently these egg ghosts that's them.
That's kind of creepy.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Asian ghosts, man. We don't mess around with our ghost stories. No. That's why, Rob, earlier you said like Asian horror movies are just so much scarier. You know, like The Ring and The Grudge.
Yeah.
How are they so good at this horror? Because
not only that,
we got some gnarly ghosts.
Hey, not only that, they're pretty dadgum good at thrillers and stuff too. Because the what's two of them? I Met the Devil is a good one.
Oh, you saw that one? That one's pretty dark, man. That one's pretty dark.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Have you seen Old Boy?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
And
we know how to go dark,
folks. Man. If you have watched the American version of Old Boy, you haven't seen the movie. You have not seen the movie. Go watch the original version, the Korean version of Old Boy, and then and watch I Met the Devil. Those are good movies. Good movies. Intense movies.
Now, if you want,
where'd you find really quickly before I forget? Tex, where'd you find those at? Just on the cables?
I think you can find them on Amazon.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. But yeah.
if you want real creepy Asian cryptid stories, though, Japan is where it's at. Japan is good for that, yeah. Because, oh boy, they love their creepy cryptids, man. Oof, some of them are creepy.
What country did I'm trying to think what country that movie Death Note came out of?
Japan. That's Japanese.
Yeah, man, that's a good one.
Man, Japanese people, Japanese culture, man, there's a darkness about it. Like they're really good at dark. Yeah.
But
but if you go into their lore and their mythology, you can see where that darkness comes from, because there are a lot of real creepy, like cryptid and ghost stories, and just oh man, that's something worth looking into, folks.
There's some coming out of the UK lately too.
Yeah, UK's got a lot of history, a lot of old ghosts.
Under the Skin is a good one.
Their ghosts feel more like classical, right? Because there's usually like a ghost of like some noble person that you're like so amazed by.
Right.
But oh man, UK's got a lot of haunted locations, man. They really do. That whole country must be like just crowded with ghosts if you think about its history.
Yeah, well, they kind of brought that on themselves.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, Donnie. You did talk about your one fantastic paranormal encounter with the Ouija board. We're gonna have to cut it here in a little bit, but I want to ask you: is there anything else that you've experienced outside of the Ouija board that kind of rattled your cage a little bit?
Can I tell you about the craziest story? Not the craziest paranormal story, but the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I was working for a university in this countryside area of Korea. I was walking back to my apartment, or the professor dorms, with my roommate, and we walked past this barbecue restaurant, and inside is my dean, and she's with her assistant, and she's with it was her and her assistant, and they're just in there. And here's a little backstory: the dean, she's like the daughter of the owner of the university, so it's all totally nepotism. She's getting so drunk at this barbecue restaurant. Now, in this countryside area of Korea, the barbecue was pig's feet. I don't know if you've ever had pig's feet, barbecued pig's feet.
No,
got
but
a bit of a gnarly little twang to it, but it's good.
Not to interrupt, I've seen them boiled. There's my dad. Yeah, he had like 15 boiling in a pot. And I remember as a kid, I'm like, what's this nasty ass smell? My dad starts laughing, go look in the pot, Robbie. And it was the nastiest thing I ever seen. And the claws were still on, the skin was on, the hair was on. And I was like, this is pretty nasty, Dad. So sorry, Donnie, but it just popped in my head. Continue, please.
No, I'm actually glad you brought that up because that's kind of how this pig's feet at this barbecued restaurant was. It had the skin because it's cooked with the skin, like you grill it.
Man,
it's got skin on it. It's got maybe like a couple hairs here and there, but it's part of the texture. It's part of the dining experience.
Yeah, and they were all curled up. They were being boiled. It was like so nasty.
And that little funky twang, you put the right sauce on it. It's all right.
I will pass.
So she's getting hammered. The dean, she sees us outside the window and she's like, you guys, in Korean culture, if your boss is drunk and tells you to do something, you got to do it.
Yeah.
So she forces me and my roommate to sit down with her and get drunk with her and her assistant, who's like this middle-aged Korean woman. And she is literally grabbing the kimchi out of the dish and eating it like in her fist and just eating it like this. And we're like looking horrified, like, you don't do that in Korea. You use chopsticks. What are you doing, lady? How messed up are you right now, right? And her assistant, she like talks to me like all close, but her breath just smelled like booze and kimchi and pig's feet and death. And I almost threw up in my mouth. And this lady, I remember, was wearing like white trousers, like white pants and a white shirt. And then she got up to walk out, to stumble out of the restaurant. And keep in mind, this is a pig's feet barbecue restaurant.
Right.
And she's got
I can't believe they make those. I'm just so infatuated. Keep going. I'm sorry.
She's got a trail of poo running down her pants. And it is totally visible because she's wearing all white. And you see this thing work its way down the leg, down to like the cuff of her pant. And then you see that little droplet of poo come out. And at this point, making such a scene that everyone's looking at this. And then once the first droplet of poo comes out, then you hear it off in the distance. One girl over at the corner table, she pukes. She pukes, right? And then her puke filled the whole area up with the smell of the puke. And then this guy over here pukes. And then that person over there pukes.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden, it's like a cacophony of people puking. Because a lot of these people were also drunk. So
chain reaction.
Puke and rally.
That is literally the craziest thing I have ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah,
that beats Bigfoot in terms of craziness.
No, that's crazy. That's just outright nasty.
That beats Dogman in terms of craziness. Dogman's scarier, but in terms of just ridiculousness, I don't know. I think that might beat Dogman.
Well, you might get the same result in a Dogman sighting, but
oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is true. The fact that it happened at a pig's feet barbecue restaurant, that's not even like the most popular type of restaurant to have a barbecue restaurant for,
That should not be popular at all. A pig's feet restaurant.
My dad actually really likes it. He really likes
well, my dad did too for some. Then my dad was peculiar. I think he just did that to get a rise out of me and my brother. I went to the University of Michigan. My dad was a State fan. Go figure.
You know what the weirdest bar food in Korea is actually? Silkworms.
Now I heard those aren't too bad.
Silkworms.
I heard that's not bad though.
Like they're like in like water, like in tuna. You just get a can of them, you just open it up, and you just kind of eat one by one at a time with like chopsticks. And apparently, you're supposed to do that with like beer or like soju, or like their Korean version of moonshine. And apparently, that's what they like to do.
I'm going to introduce a lot of people in Fort Worth when they come down to the Dogman Conference. We go out. I got the place we're going. I'm going to introduce a lot of people to calf fries.
I've never had that before. I don't know what that even is. I don't even know what that word is.
Calf fries.
What's a cat fries?
Calf fries.
Calf fries.
Calf. K-E-F.
Never heard of it.
K-E-F. What?
Never even heard of it.
L-F. God almighty.
Did you say F? Do you calf or calf?
C-A-L-F.
Oh, calf fries.
Like a baby cow calf fries?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
It's the testicles.
Yeah.
I'd eat it. I try
You
it.
cut them up, batter them, and deep fry them.
Hey, I've
I'll
eat grosser
eat.
stuff than that.
I will say this: I do
Yeah.
have a queasy stomach when I think about it. But if you were to give me something, not tell me what it is, that's the way to go with me. But then again, pig's feet, you know what that is immediately when you
Yeah.
see it on your plate. Tex,
I've had-
Tex, when we were in Texas for that one convention, and we were sitting at that cool bar outside on the river that was in that cool lake.
Caddo Lake.
What was that smorgasbord? Because I kind of that you gotten with the I know it was well, catfish was a part of it. But what was that like appetizer?
Oh, that was gator.
That was gate now but that was done differently than I've had before, and that was fantastic.
That was the best gator I've ever had.
Oh man, what that was like!
I've never had gator.
Succulent.
That's not something you can find easily in Asia. So
Very, very good. Very,
yeah.
very
Yeah,
good.
I have
fantastic.
eaten the grossest thing personally, in my opinion, that I've ever eaten, like in terms of like just how bad it tasted. Like I was like wanting to vomit for days afterwards. And it's apparently a popular dish amongst like middle-aged older Korean men. Fermented swordfish. Oh, no, fermented stingray. Fermented stingray. It was the grossest thing I'd ever eaten. I've ever had in my mouth. You know what it tasted like? It tasted like eating fish flavored soda, because it would fizz in your mouth like soda, but it was fish flavored. It was gross. That was literally the grossest thing I've ever had in my mouth. And I've had some gross things in my mouth before.
Again, that is for the Donny Cho Says Stuff show. Donny Cho's got a great show, everybody. It's called Donny Cho Says Stuff. It's a little different than the Cryptid, the paranormal. I found it refreshing, Donnie. I was on your show yesterday. We did a video for tomorrow. I think it's released. And I had such a good time. And everybody, if you haven't checked out Donny Cho on YouTube, he's been out about a month, maybe.
Well,
it's a cool show, lighthearted, funny. You can swear on it, you can drink on it. It's really different. Not that I'm an advocate of any of those things, but yeah, it's really kick back and chill, man. I had a good time yesterday, bro.
Thank you. And I do appreciate a lot of these people throwing out the links to my channel. And
yes,
thank you. I am very appreciative of the support, and I'm glad that you guys enjoy some of the stuff that I say. Yeah, the only disclaimer is that there is a lot of like harsh language. So if you are offended by any of that, you're not invited. Don't come.
Actually, well, yesterday we were pretty mild yesterday.
We were fairly mild.
I built into not swearing on a show, so I kind of stayed away. But I dropped a couple lines here and there. But it was a fun show. We talked 80s and 90s rock, and then the last 20 minutes we talked we got a little creepy with it, which was fun.
Yeah,
you always got to mix in a little of that. And so where else can we find you outside of Donny Cho Says Stuff? You got Facebook or anything you want people to hook up with you on?
Yeah, just come join me on Facebook. My name is out there. I'm pretty easy to look up. And yeah, I do try to put on links to shows and funny memes.
Very good. And Tex, what do you got going on? Okay, well, enough of that. No.
Yeah. Oh, we got, you know what? Next Monday, we got Nick coming on. Little Tex, a lot of people call.
Oh, Little Tex. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Awesome. That's great. And, Wednesday, you got Diva. We got the Diva Dimension Wednesday. And then Thursday, I'm brunch with Bigfoot Rob. I've got the young lady from Small Town Monsters joining me. Her name, Heather Mosier, will be on with me and Krista. We're going to talk a whole bunch of stuff. She's also into the paranormal and talk a little about what she does with those guys and with the documentary they've done. But she's also has some experiences in the field herself, which we're going to get into.
Hey, ask her about the Bell Witch.
Yeah, she's. Yes, I'm going to get her started on a bunch of things. So that's going to be a nice show. And then, of course, Donnie, me and you, the show we recorded will be on tomorrow for you at about what you said, 8:20 or 8:30
tomorrow, 8:20 Eastern time. Come join us for Jason McLean Questions Everything, because that's going to be part 2 of our conversation about the Bronze Age, and hopefully you guys can make it out to that one. Show.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Yep.
And
It's a
then
good,
after
good
that will
series.
be our conversation, Rob. We'll premiere
Yep,
at
very good.
8:20 afterwards.
That'll be nice. That'll be cool. And again, don't forget, everybody, subscribe to Bigfoot Mystery Rob on YouTube, Texas Front Porch on YouTube, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast on YouTube, Van Buren Variety on YouTube, Jason McLean Questions Everything on YouTube. My buddy Duke's out in the chat. Y'all subscribe to him by now. I know, World Bigfoot Radio. Jessica's out there, the Cryptid Hunter. Subscribe to her. Donnie, of course, his new show, Donny Cho, says stuff. Thank you, Donnie, for a wonderful show. Thank you to Scott, Cynthia, Maggie, and Anella for your awesome super
And
chats.
happy birthday,
stickers.
Anella.
And happy birthday, Anella. Thank you for the support and love. We do appreciate that. It does go a long way.
Danielle's doing live readings tomorrow night.
Live readings Wednesday, Texas Front Porch. Check it out.
I'm going to be there for that. I'm going to be in the chat for that. I'd like a live reading.
Check it on out. We got a lot going on across all of our channels. We do appreciate you guys for coming in. And for those of you watching later, with that being said, thanks to Donnie, thanks to Tex, thanks to chat, thanks to all the super chats and all your love and support. I am Bigfoot Mystery Rob for Tex, for Donnie. We'll see you on the flip side.